Alright, in this video we're going to continue with more applications of ratios and rates. So suppose there's a car that is traveling at 80 kilometers per hour and you want to find out how far it would travel in 3 hours, for example. So I guess the quickest way to do this is to look at the units. So we're given information in terms of the speed. So that is in kilometers per hour, or essentially just kilometers divided by hours. And we want our answer to be, so we want to find out how far it would travel in this. So how far means that we want the answer to be in kilometers. So how can we make this fraction here into just kilometers? Well, if we multiply it by hours, the 2 hour units will cancel out and we will be left with that. So let's see, this is speed and this thing here is time. So that means that in order to find the total distance, we just need to multiply speed times time. So in this case, we want to find out the time is given as 3 hours. So that means 3 hours here. The speed is given as 80 kilometers per hour. So the hour units cancel out and we're left with 3 times 80, which is going to be 240 kilometers. So that's the total distance traveled in that time. Now that we know the formula for that, we can do the same thing here. So the total distance would be time, which is half an hour times 80 kilometers per hour. So the hour units cancel out and we're left with 80 divided by 2, which is 40 kilometers. And then let's do the final one. So this is going to be 6.5 hours. Well, this one is going to be a little bit trickier because we actually need to convert to a fraction. So using the technique we know, we have 12 plus 1 over 2, and that's going to become 13 on 2 hours. So now we do distance is going to be equal to 13 on 2 hours times 80 kilometers per hour. So these two cancel out. Now we have 80 times 13. That's going to become 1040 over 2 kilometers. And then we can simplify that. So that's going to become 520 kilometers. So that's our final answer. Now, suppose that we're given something similar. So how long would it take to travel this amount of distance? So let's think for a second what information we're given. We're given speed, which is in kilometers per hour. So that's our speed. Now, we're given a piece of information in the form of kilometers, and we want to find out the time, which has units of hours. So what relationship between these two do we need to actually execute in order to get this? Well, we cannot really multiply those two because that would mean we have kilometers times kilometers, which would give us kilometers squared over hours, and those are not units of time. However, if we swap around these two, so if we write this as h over kilometers and then multiply by kilometers, then we would actually be canceling out those units, which means that we will be left with just the hours, which corresponds to the time. But in order to swap these two around, we also need to swap the speed around. So basically, if we want units of hours per kilometer, that would be 1 over the speed. So what we have here is time is going to be equal to 1 over the speed times the distance, or simply distance over speed. And that's going to give us the units that we need. So let's do that just now. So in this case, we're given the total distance of 400 kilometers. The speed is 80 kilometers per hour. The kilometers are going to cancel out, so we have 480. That gives us 5. So the total comes down to just 5 hours. So it will take 5 hours to travel this amount of distance at that speed. Now let's use the same one here. We have 360, so that's 360 kilometers divided by 80 kilometers per hour. The units of kilometers cancel out. The hours come to the top because of that division of fractions that we already discussed in previous videos. And then 360 divided by 80 is going to be 4.5 hours. Or we could express that as 4.5 hours, essentially. And then for the final one, we want to find out, okay, so how long would it take to actually travel a distance of 20 kilometers? So the time would be 20 kilometers divided by speed. So kilometers cancel out, hours comes to the top, and we have 20 divided by 80, which is actually going to simplify to 1/4. So 1/4 of an hour, or simply 0.25 hours. And that's basically how you would deal with this problem. So ratios and rates have really good applications in problems that are practical, like this one, which is a physics problem. And they also have applications in chemistry and so on. So it's important to understand how to interpret the question and then just rearrange terms in a manner that would allow you to solve for the particular quantity that is being asked.